Hello, we are back with another live Wrestling with Johners, and I'm delighted to introduce our next guest for episode 171, Lilith Grimm. So the Demon, Lilith Grimm, you look absolutely fantastic in your full mask there and costume. Lilith, how are you doing? It's like afternoon over there where you are in Denver, but how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. So it's like 8 p.m. over here in the UK, live on Facebook, live across YouTube, and for the first time ever on Twitch as well, which is absolutely fantastic. Exciting for us. And it's like 1 p.m. over there in Denver for yourself. I believe you're in Denver. I'm right in saying that?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So first of all, I just want to encourage any viewers that are out there watching us live on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube to get in touch. If you have any questions for Lilith, you can do. We want your questions. We want your comments. Simply enter your comments at the bottom of your screen. But before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard, who are broadcasting this live, StreamYard's permission to see your name as part of the question by visiting StreamYard.com/Facebook. That's StreamYard.com/Facebook. We want your questions, we want your comments, and I'll just bring up a little banner in a second so that you know exactly where to go to. But Lilith, great. I'll tell you, this wasn't a question I was going to go to straight away, but we got to talk about your gimmick. First of all, what inspired the Demon, Lilith Grimm, to start off with? To tell us all about it, to tell us about the birth of what we're seeing now live across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch.
The birth of the Demon. So I've always been an odd character. I've always been very interested in the macabre, in the taboo, in the dark, and the creepy. I was a haunted house scare actor for a while, and I absolutely love all things spooky. And when I started wrestling, I struggled for a while with what gimmick I wanted to do. I went through like 3 or 4 different gimmicks, and then I was doing a battle royal one day, and the announcer asked me, "How do you want me to announce you?" And I said, "Call me the Demon." And ever since then, that's where this came from, and this is 100% who I am as a person now.
Well, they say that the best gimmicks in wrestling are like an extension of your own personality. Is there some element of truth behind that, as far as you're concerned as well? I mean, before you started wrestling, was you into the dark and the macabre? And tell us about it.
I absolutely agree with that. I definitely think that you need to, in order to really live your gimmick, to have a true good gimmick, it has to be part of who you are. Because if you have to turn it on and force it, it's not going to work. But if you can just, I put the mask on, I put the makeup on, and then she's there. Like, Lilith is simply who I am. Like, I live like this. I was out in North Carolina for a show a couple weeks ago, and I went like this to go get food, and like walked the whole way there, and was terrified that I was going to get holy water sprayed on me. But like, this is just who I am. This is where I'm most comfortable.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I can't wait to kind of take a deep dive into your career. I know that you're only about 2 years into your wrestling career at the moment, but we're going to talk about all of that. But still on the theme of your gimmick then, Lilith, the name, the Demon, Lilith Grimm. Where did you come up with Lilith Grimm from? What's the kind of origins of the name behind the gimmick?
So the origins of the name, originally I was just Lilith. I chose that name. It's a name I've always resonated with. I think it's really pretty. I really like it. And my original storyline is I was actually tied to Rob Reisen, and Rob Reisen sent me to the guy that I valeted for to turn him into a champion. So I was like, okay, well, I'm basically like the right hand of the devil. Who's right hand of the devil? Well, it's Lilith. So I chose that name, and then I needed a last name, and Grimm has actually been my name for about 8 years now. Like I was a musician for a while, and my stage name was Miss Grimm, and then I was a burlesque dancer, and my name on there was Grimm Delagosi. So like Grimm has just been an ongoing theme. So Grimm really is who I am. Like I got a tattoo to my hand, so like it's really just who I am. So Grimm just kind of had to follow me into wrestling.
So it all makes perfect sense, and it all ties in perfectly with who you are I can see it loud and clear now. And like I say, the imagery is really, really striking. But getting on to kind of pro wrestling now then, I mean, despite most of the wrestling scene over here in the UK still being on lockdown, Lilith, you've been quite active recently on the wrestling scene. You wrestled, I think, last weekend for IZW, their Monsters 2021 show in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. Now, despite everything that's still going on, you're keeping quite a regular schedule. It's still very, very active. You're busy raising your profile. Tell us about that, because lockdown doesn't really seem to have affected you as much as other wrestlers say.
No, it really hasn't. Like, it affected me in the sense that my debut was supposed to be in April of last year. That's when I was supposed to officially debut in wrestling. And it was booked. It was actually booked for my 1-year anniversary of when I started training. I was super excited for it. It was at the company that I wanted to work for. Like, everything lined up beautifully. And I was like, yes, this is going to be fantastic. And then the lockdown hit, and it took that away from me. And I had to wait till June to debut. And then once I debuted, it was pretty much just hit the ground running, never stopped. And, like, I haven't really had a weekend off in, like, I don't know, 9 months. Like, I don't get time off. Like, if I have a weekend off, I gotta fill it with something. Shows. I'm just willing to travel. I just want to go everywhere and just do all the wrestling.
Yeah, and you're busy training and, like I say, raising your profile on social media, doing interviews like this one, for example. And I believe you've got another match next week, and it's your debut over in Texas, if I'm not mistaken, for a company called Texas Prodigy Pro Wrestling in a triple threat match. So what can you tell us about your debut over in Texas next weekend?
I'm very excited for my debut in Texas. I'm no stranger to triple threat matches, and I'm super excited. Both those girls are very, very well-known wrestlers. They're both very talented, and I'm excited to step into the ring and see just how badly I can hurt them.
Yeah, so it's Amber Rodriguez and Jasmine Allure, if I'm not mistaken. And the really fun thing about it is you're being featured prominently on their poster, front and center, which is absolutely awesome for you. And I'm guessing, with the names that you've mentioned, it's going to be a featured match as well. So we're definitely one to watch out for.
Absolutely. I'm very excited for that match and excited for my Texas debut. Texas is somewhere that's been on my radar for a while, and it's really exciting to finally get to go down there and see what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've spoken about the demon character. We've spoken about the origins of the name. But even before kind of the demon Lilith Grimm, when did kind of professional wrestling first kind of come into your life? Who introduced you to pro wrestling? When did you first become a fan?
So I actually got introduced to it pretty late in my life. I was introduced to it through a boyfriend. I came home one day and he was watching WWE and he turned it off really quickly. I was like, well, what are you watching? He's like, oh, I'm watching wrestling. I was like, well, turn it on. He's like, oh, okay. Like all my exes thought it was stupid. I'm like, no, turn it on. Let's watch it. And so that was about 2013. And I remember watching the Wyatt family, specifically Bray Wyatt, just fell in love with Bray Wyatt, fell in love with the Shield. And then I very distinctly remember watching Paige's main roster debut after WrestleMania against AJ Lee, and like I was hooked. I was hooked for life since then. And it took many years before I actually became a wrestler. I loved it, but I didn't think like, oh, this is something I can do. I wanted to do it. I absolutely wanted to, but I had no idea how to. And then I got into burlesque, and I did that for about 6 years. And I met the guy that I valeted for, Eric Angel, through that. And he and I were working on something, and I sent him Bray Wyatt's theme song, and he was like, wait, how do you know this song? I was like, what's my favorite wrestler theme song? He's like, did you say favorite wrestler? I was like, yeah, I know. I watched that. I'm one of those people. He's like, I've been a wrestler for 13 years. And I was like, how have we never talked about this? Have we been friends for 6 years and we never knew? And then he asked if I would be interested in being his valet, and I said absolutely. I did my first show, and I fell in love with it. And 2 weeks later, I started training, and that's almost 2 years ago now. 2 years later, here I am.
Yeah, and I've got to say, going back to your kind of your mask in particular, there's something very kind of the Bray Wyatt family-esque about that as well. So you can definitely see that Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family are influential in terms of certain aspects of your look. Are there any other wrestlers that kind of drew you in as a fan back in the early days before you got involved in the business?
Yeah, there were quite a few. Obviously the Wyatt family, the Shield. Paige was my girl, like 100% diehard love Paige.
Yeah.
Started watching some of the older stuff, CM Punk, Undertaker, Triple H. I love big characters. Like characters are what really draw me in and make me want to watch it. And I primarily only watched WWE when I first started getting into it. I didn't even know that indie wrestling was a thing until I started being an indie wrestler.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, you're originally from California, and you're now in Denver. So how did you kind of make that transition from California to Denver? Was it through wrestling that you made the move, or did you move a while ago?
I moved a while ago. I was born in California. My mom was in the Army. That's where she was stationed at the moment when I came to be, when the Demon was created. And we moved around a lot in my early days. And then she's originally from here, so we settled here. So I've been here for the majority of my life.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, I mean, we're going to get into your training very, very soon, Lilith. But you've been wrestling for approximately 2 years, and how did it develop from being a huge fan into starting your training? But before you answer that, it actually brings us to our first listener question, and it's from a certain person you might actually know. A certain yoga monster, Mike Seidel, got in touch with us and asked this question. Can we ask Lilith how she started training to become a pro wrestler? So if you want to answer the yoga monster's question there, that would be awesome. How did you become a wrestler?
How did I become a wrestler? So also, hi Mike, love you. You're amazing. Very excited to watch you this weekend.
Big fans of Mike Seidel, and he's been on the podcast as well. He's awesome.
It started because I'm blind. I'm super blind, like far away, because I make throughout my life I've done many different things. I make chainmail jewelry. I've been a blacksmith, so it's a lot of like stuff here. So my far distance vision is not the best, and I will admit that. But I was at a show with Eric at a burlesque show, and I looked over at him, and I was so blind that all I could see was his top hat, and I was just like, he looks like a voodoo guy. And I went and talked to him. I was like, why don't you have a voodoo act? And he was like, you're right. I was like, wait, why don't we have a voodoo act? And he was like, yes. And so I sent him Bray Wyatt's theme song, and then the day that I actually started training, I went to the gym to pick up tickets to sell for the next show, because I was like, oh, like I've been in bands, I can sell tickets, I know the gig. So I show up there, and I was like, hey, like I'm here to pick up tickets. They're like, okay, cool. I'm like, hey, since I'm here, like I'm kind of interested in training. Like, how do I get started? And they're like, oh, well, you can do your tryout right now. And I was like, sweet. The only thing I've eaten today is a cake, which I ate right before I came here. So let's do this. And so that was my first day of wrestling, and I took that first bump, and I was like, I am in love. This is everything I want to do.
That's awesome. And I mean, that first bump, I mean, it wasn't enough to put you off. But how did you find the whole training? I've spoken to many wrestlers, and they say that the training, especially early on, is grueling. Sometimes it's been enough to kind of keep them from wanting to go again. But you by the sounds of it, you enjoyed the training.
Oh, I absolutely love training. Back in my earlier days, I was a gymnast for a while,
right?
And I absolutely loved gymnastics. So when I found wrestling again, because shortly after I left gymnastics, I tore all the ligaments in my shoulder, and this shoulder was so weak that I couldn't lift, I couldn't do anything. And I was like, well, there goes any athletic career that I could possibly have. And I just accepted my fate that it was over. And then I just decided, like, no, that's not okay. Like, I love doing athletic activities, and I miss gymnastics, so I'm going to give pro wrestling a try. And it reminded me of my love for gymnastics. But even then, my love of gymnastics cannot compare to how much I love pro wrestling and how much I love being a pro wrestler.
So you started training a while ago. You've been wrestling for 2 years, but how long was it between you started training and your first match? And what do you remember about your first match, Lilith? How did it go?
Yeah, so I started training 2 years ago. I debuted about 9 months ago now, back in June of this year. And so it was about a year and a half of training before I finally debuted.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I waited as long as I did to debut. I definitely wanted to be more refined before I came onto the scene, because I take this business extremely seriously. Like, this is all I want in life, so I wanted to know, like, I'm ready to go. And I'll admit it, I was insanely nervous for my first match. Like, I was in the back shaking. I'm downing water, just trying not to like throw up. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like it's finally happening. And then my music hit and I came out there and I did my, like, back then I wore a hood and I did a little hair flip and I was like, okay, I can do this. And I never wanted to be anywhere else besides in that ring after that.
Wow. And I mean, just kind of digging a bit deeper into what you said there, Lilith, that you made your actual debut less than a year ago, 9 months ago. That's outstanding, considering what sort of progression you've made in the business in that short amount of time. Does that surprise you that you've kind of come such a long way in such a short space of time, or do you think that the year and a half prior of training kind of stood you in good stead for being the wrestler you are today?
I'm happily surprised. It's what I wanted. It's what my goal was. So I'm happy that it did happen. But yeah, I am kind of shocked with how quickly things started happening. Because like it was pretty slow in the first. Like, I was like, okay, I get like 3-4 matches a month. Like, that's pretty good. And then I did the OVW combine, and ever since then things have just been, all go, no stop.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And tell us about that first match then. What do you remember about it? How did it go?
I mean, for a first match, I thought it was pretty decent. I was happy with it. It was at the Colorado Springs Wrestling Headlocks for Hospice, or the charity show. I was wrestling against somebody that I got to train with for a little bit, Heidi Howitzer, and we had a fun time. She and I have had a couple of matches since then, but yeah, so like it wasn't horrible. I'll say that, like, it wasn't a stellar 5-star match, because it was my first match ever, but I'm not displeased with it.
That's good. That's good, because I've heard some nightmare stories of wrestlers in their first matches and it not going particularly well. But at least yours wasn't a car crash, and something you can look back on fondly. But I want to talk about the wrestling scene in Denver. Now, I mentioned that you're originally from California. You've been in Denver for quite a while. The women's scene in particular in Denver is really growing, and thanks to individuals like yourself. You mentioned Heidi Howitzer, current AEW star Abaddon, has been a big contributor to the Denver scene, and so many others, Ali Gatto as well. But tell us about the scene over in Denver, because I've interviewed many wrestlers, and of course Nick Gosser from Triple L and Respect Women's Wrestling, and I've interviewed kind of quite a few of the bigger stars coming out of the Denver area. And what is it about Denver, do you believe, that's kind of making it a real hotbed for pro wrestling, and in particular the women's scene as well?
Yeah, so like Denver, we have quite a few companies here. Like you mentioned, we have Triple L, we have Respect, obviously we have Rocky Mountain Pro, which is where I'm from. Colorado Springs, New Era, Primos, we definitely, Denver is kind of, it's overlooked, I feel, or at least it was like a couple of years ago. It was definitely overlooked and kind of like a dead zone for wrestling, but it's really starting to grow. Triple L is definitely becoming a much more well-known name across, not just, Colorado, but across the country. Respect has, absolutely amazing women, Thunder Rosa, Evilise, come out to Respect, and, like, that's outstanding for us local girls. We get to work talent like that, and that's something that Gossard gives us through Respect, which is, I cannot say enough good things about that company. I've gotten to do a couple matches for Respect so far, and I love Respect. And then Rocky Mountain Pro is just ever growing. Like we run on Twitch, and we've been averaging about 1 million views a month over the last
Wow,
year.
that's
Like
good.
when we hit front page, we'll get like 16,000 views at a time. We have a very successful Twitch program that just keeps growing. And like you mentioned, like Abaddon came from Rocky Mountain Pro. When she went to AEW, they already knew RMP because they'd seen our Twitch show. They knew who she was. I definitely say RMP is a huge contributing factor into the growth of Colorado wrestling and making Colorado putting it on the map of wrestling and not just making this the Midwest kind of a dead zone for wrestling. And the women's scene here is definitely starting to grow. We have I think we have like 5 girls training at Rocky Mountain Pro right now, which is that's outstanding for the women's division here, because when I first started, I think there was like 5 girls total. So we definitely have some new blood coming into the women's division here. We have some old blood re-entering the women's division, which is very exciting. I won't go too far into that until it gets revealed, but very exciting things coming with that. And it's just I can't say enough good things about the Rocky Mountain Pro training facility.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that now, as a matter of fact, because as you said, Rocky Mountain Pro, they've got an association with the Al Snow Wrestling Academy, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yeah.
You're now part of Rocky Mountain Pro. You're officially part of their roster. How did that opportunity with RMP kind of come about? And of course, you're training with the Al Snow Wrestling Academy now, so that's a pretty exciting step change for you.
Yes, absolutely. I trained at a different school for beginning of my training, and then I did January of last year. I took a seminar at RMP, and it was Al Snow and D'Lo and Gregory Iron, and it was a fantastic seminar. I absolutely loved it, and I've been considering coming over to RMP for a while. Back in October of that year, I had done another seminar there, a smaller one with Sledge from Ring of Honor, and I'd been considering it. And then I did the Al Snow D'Lo seminar, and then Mercury Yaden invited me to come to the Pepsi Center that night because they had to show the Pepsi Center to 6,000 people after the Mammoths game, and I got to be in the locker room, and I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be. And so I made the switch, and it was hard. There was a lot of backlash with the switch from schools, but as it is, everybody has an opinion, but it was absolutely the right choice for me. I have thrived in the Rocky Mountain Pro structure. We're at the Fast Performance Center now, which is an athletic training center. We have an athletic coach who does strength and conditioning program with us, which is specifically detailed towards wrestlers. And that's all done by Scotty Long. He is an absolutely amazing athletic coach, and he has made all of us into true athletes. Like, we're not just, we can go do flips and stuff. Like, no, like, we feel like athletes now. And then we partnered maybe 6 months after that with Al Snow and became the Al Snow Wrestling Academy Rocky Mountain. And having that association has just done wonders for the school and done wonders for our roster, because now we have the connection to OVW. And, I definitely take advantage of that connection.
Absolutely. And then, like I say, it does offer some exciting opportunities down the road for Rocky Mountain Pro talents, for sure. But I was going to say, do you see much of Al? Because I know that OVW are based in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's about 1,000 miles away from where you are in Denver. So I should imagine that he probably just makes sporadic appearances. He's probably not there on a constant basis, I should imagine.
Yeah, he's definitely at OVW constant. So we'll see him every now and then. But whenever I do go out to go do an OVW show, I'll go out for a couple of days so I can do some training out there as well before the show, and really making my worthwhile and getting to train with Doug Basham and Cashflow, and now it's been invaluable. Like, they have helped me so much. They really helped cultivate my gimmick because I was actually about to give up on it before I started doing OVW. And
wow.
Al Snow and Doug Basham are really the ones that pushed me. They're like, you have it, it's there. Now take it and just shoot it as far, go as far with this as you possibly can, because it's right there. You just need to accept what you are and go forward with it. And I took that to heart, and ever since then, I just, it just feels natural now.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you spoke earlier about Al Snow and D'Lo being at one of the first seminars, and you've had Mike Bennett there as well to do a seminar.
Absolutely,
And
that
I
was
think you've
a
got D'Lo
fantastic
coming.
seminar.
Yeah, you've got D'Lo coming again soon, I understand. So all these kind of guest appearances from legends of the sport and, you know, superstars of the sport. And you can tell just by looking at your socials, Lilith, that every time you've had another session at the training academy, that you just feel like you're growing every time you go there.
Oh, absolutely. Like every day when I'm not at training, all I think about is training. I just want to be in that ring. I just want to be getting better. And it's really the only time that I feel my soul ignite. I feel truly happy is when I get to be there and I get to see my progress. Like, okay, like today, like my footwork was a little bit better. Today I got the move a little bit better, or like I'm starting to be able to not have to memorize everything, like it's every little tiny victory just propels me forward more to just I want more. Like I got this one, but now I want that one.
Yeah, and speaking of, you know, this one and that one, I understand that they also give out coloured shirts based
Yeah.
on your training. So similar to different coloured belts in martial
Yep.
arts, karate, for example, you'd get a different coloured shirts based on what you've learned or how far you've progressed. And I saw recently on social media that you've earned your green shirt.
Yeah.
Have you progressed any further since then? And tell us a bit more about the shirt system. It's really, really fascinating to me.
Yes, I love the shirt system. It definitely, honestly, it's really motivating. So you come in when you're first starting, you're a white shirt, and you're a white shirt for a while, and then you'll get promoted to a green shirt, and green shirt means that you're ready to be on shows. You can be trusted in the ring. The blue shirt's more like you can be trusted to lead, and
Yep.
then so it goes from blue to red. Blue to red, and then red's more of like you can kind of be trusted to like lead trainings. Purple is an assistant coach, and then black is a coach.
That's
And
really
so yeah, I
awesome.
got my green shirt after Mike Bennett seminar, after a year of training at R&B, and it was a very emotional moment. I've been really grinding to get that, and as much as I love my new green shirt, I think blue would look better on me. So now I'm going for that blue shirt.
I agree. I 100% agree, and it's great having a system like that because it gives you little check boxes, little goals to achieve and kind of tick off, and I think that's fantastic. But let's talk a bit about your move set then, your arsenal, because I have seen a lot of your matches. I've been a fan of yours ever since I started doing the Denver-based interviews last year, and kind of saw you popping up on social media. I thought I'd got to check out some of Lilith's matches, and I have been doing so. And you've got this wicked inverted DDT. You've also got a move called the Exorcist as well. But if I may be so bold, you've got some really impressive moves. Some standard kind of power moves, but then you really turn it up. You've got enziguris, you've got submission holds that you can break out at a moment's notice. So your versatility seems to be kind of really building every match that you have.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. You taking the time to watch my matches. Yeah, I definitely like my powerhouse moves. German suplex has definitely become one of my signature moves. My Saito is getting up there. I really love my Saito. I just debuted my new finisher move with my last match against Ola Lola, which I'm calling the Man Cuerda. It's a medieval torture technique where they would wrap cords around the arm and then pull back on them to like rip the flesh.
Right.
And it's a double underhook and then just tearing the rotator cuffs out. So I definitely like my power moves.
For sure. And I also saw in another post of yours, you posted something like lucha. Is that a little bit of an is that a bit of an insight into maybe what Lilith Grime has in her back pocket for future matches, maybe?
Like I definitely was kind of shocked that I was able to do the lucha. We had our trainer in that night. And he decided, like, hey, let's do some lucha stuff. And I was like, all right, like I'm 210 pounds, and like I'm just a bodybuilder and a muscle lady. So let's do some flippy stuff. And I was actually kind of shocked at my ability to do the flippy stuff. Having been a gymnast in the past, like I definitely originally wanted to do a lot more of the flippy stuff. I trained moonsaults and 450s and all that stuff. And then I got injured, and I got my spine bruised, and that took all of that away from me because I couldn't bend backwards and I couldn't take bumps off the top rope anymore because it hurt so bad. And then the lockdown happened, and I was bored. I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? I guess I'll start bodybuilding because why not? And I started working out like very consistently, and I really feel that Powerhouse is more my style. But the demon has wings, and maybe every now and then I'll whip out some high flying stuff.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to surprise your opponents once in a while with a different move. But I'm very impressed kind of watching your matches with what you're able to offer in the ring. So well done, and keep up the really, really hard work there. I'm kind of interested to see your development in the ring as the months and the years progress. But you mentioned earlier that you've been mostly a tag wrestler, and it's only been in the last few months that you've been doing more singles matches. Do you have a preference, one over the other, maybe tag against one-on-one, or do you like them both for different reasons?
I definitely prefer being a singles wrestler. Like, I've done a couple tag matches, and I've almost always been in some faction or another. But being a singles wrestler is definitely my forte. I prefer not having to rely on anybody because people are unreliable, and I know that I can get it done. So I don't want to have to rely on somebody else.
For sure. And let's talk about some of your favorite opponents now then. Who would you say has been some of your favorite opponents in the ring then, Lilith? Now, you've had some great matches, many of which are available on the Respect Women's Wrestling YouTube channel, if anybody wants to go and check out some of your work. And of course, you've done a lot of great work for Rocky Mountain Pro, RMP, of course, as amongst others. You mentioned Heidi Howitzer and a certain character, Lola the Adventurer, and many more that you've had a series of matches with. But do you have a favorite match or favorite matches or opponents from the last couple of years then?
Lola is definitely the person I've actually worked Lola more than any other person
Right.
since I started wrestling. I think Lola and I have had around, at this point, like probably close to like 10 matches together. In some form or another, we were in a match together. I do enjoy throwing her around. She's definitely, she really brings out the anger in me because she just infuriates me, and she's super fun to work with because she brings out a different animal in me. Morgan out at IZW is super. I love Morgan to death. She is so much fun to work with. She has a wealth of knowledge. We always have a great time. Over at OVW, I've gotten to work. Harley Fairfax is one of my favorites. I love Harley. We've gone back and forth. We were opponents at my debut at OVW. We've been a tag team at OVW, and then we've had a singles match at OVW as well. And she got the better of me in that one. She knew better than to let me keep my arms strong, and she understands me. So she's a fun opponent to work because I can't just go in there and throw her around like I used to doing. I have to actually how am I gonna take this girl out, because she's a pretty formidable opponent.
Yeah, for sure. And just going back to Lola, I know you said that you've had probably the most amount of matches with her against any one individual, and you two have such great chemistry together, and you couldn't have two more contrasting characters in the ring, from yourself, the demon, to the sweet and innocent Lola. And it's really kind of quite a spectacle when you two are in the ring. But I've got another listener question. It's from another individual you might know, and it's from Lonnie Valdez. Friend of the show. We've had him on the Wrestling with Jonas podcast. Can you tell us a story about your first main event? And if you haven't had a main event yet, who would you like to main event against? So have you been involved in a main event yet?
I have been a main event. I was a main event of a Rocky Mountain Pro Charge, and that was me and Aligato. And Allie is just wonderful to work. She's been around for a while. She's definitely a staple of Colorado women's wrestling. And that was a fun match. That was definitely really hard hitting, and it was super fun to just kind of just go, with one of the best females in Colorado, and definitely the most decorated female in Colorado history as well.
Indeed, indeed. And let's move on to the next question. Thank you, Lonnie, for sending that one in. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah. And, despite everything the world and the wrestling world is going through at the moment with this pandemic, and hopefully we'll be at the back end of it fairly soon, it really does seem like 2021 is kind of becoming your year. And I know that the wrestling scene is in a bit of a shambles at the moment, but you are putting in the grind, you are putting in the effort, you're raising your profile, you're having these matches, you're still out there, you're still visible. But who would you say are any future opponents that are in your eye line? Now, you mentioned Ali Gatto. Ali Gatto is the Respect Women's Champion, and she's the Rocky Mountain Pro Women's Champion, I understand. So is she in your...
That's Rochelle right now. Rochelle's the Rocky Mountain Pro.
Right, okay. So is either Ali or the Rocky Mountain Pro Women's Champion in your eyesight, or which opponents, who would you like to face down the line?
As far as Colorado goes, absolutely. Any of the belt holders are in my eyesight, because what looks really good with purple is gold. So
Indeed, it really does.
I definitely think that anybody that has a championship should be afraid, because I am coming for all of them. Because I like to hoard things. Obviously, I like to hoard things, so I think I can hoard a few belts. As far as outside of Colorado, I have wanted to work with Maserati for such a long time, and we've been teasing that. Me and her both just like when are we gonna have this match? So that's definitely something I'd love to work sometime. Machiko down in Texas is somebody I'd love to get to work with. She came out to Colorado back when I was still just a valet, and she's somebody that I've definitely looked up to in this scene. They're just really, I don't really have any super, other than those two, super, dream opponents. I just want to wrestle everybody and anybody, because that's the only way to get better. But I will say there is one person in particular that I wish, if I had a dream match, it would be with the OG of the Spooky Girls of Colorado, which is Unholy Trinity. I've looked up to that girl since I started. We haven't seen Unholy in a while, but that would be a dream match with her, because she's somebody that I definitely has heavily influenced me. But yeah, and as far as the indies go, I'll wrestle anybody, anytime, anywhere.
That's amazing. Absolutely. And it's still early days. You're still kind of at the beginning of your career. So there's a very, very bright future ahead of you. But before we let you go, Lilith, an opportunity for you to throw out any social media plugs. Where can we find out more about yourself, the Demon, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and where can we say hi to you on social media? And any merchandise as well you might want to plug.
Absolutely. I'm on pretty much all the social medias. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm on TikTok now. And you can find me on Twitch. Pretty much on all of those, you can just search Lilith Grimm. On Twitch, I'm Lilith Grimm the Demon. But you can just search Lilith Grimm on pretty much all the social medias, and you'll find me. And I definitely have I have a Pro Wrestling Tees account, and you can just search Lilith, because I'm the only Lilith on Pro Wrestling Tees, and I have all my shirts up there. I also have I have shirts that only I have that I don't put up on Pro Wrestling Tees, so you have to get them from me in person. So instead of to come to the shows, so you can also message me and I'll talk. And I have in-person merch as well. But yeah, I try to be on all the social media that I can, and you can also see me. I stream on the Rocky Mountain Pro Twitch stream as well as my own Twitch.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for speaking to me today, all the way from Denver, Colorado. Like I've said throughout this interview, I've become a bit of a fan of yours, and I think you've got a very, very bright future. I think with all of the grind that you're putting in 2021 and all the effort and all the fantastic matches and the hard training, you're definitely going to have a very, very bright future in the wrestling business. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Excellent.